Okay, well, hello everybody, and welcome to another episode of Canadian Highlander tournament prep. And we did an episode a couple weeks ago, a few weeks ago. I don't know. Time's going by fast, but today we've got myself, Cole, with Ryan, and a very special guest, a good friend of mine, Impulse.
Hello there.
Hi.
Well, the first question is, Ryan, I know haven't talked to you in a couple weeks. So what are you up to? Impulse, what are you doing? It's kind of just catching up.
I've been unfortunately sick. Over that now, feeling better, and now it's not magic related, but getting ready for a little dude's birthday this weekend. So, got a busy time coming up.
Exciting.
Oh yeah.
Impulse, what have you been up to, Impulse?
Not too much, just a lot of work and new games coming out. Been enjoying those a lot. Had some time to play Magic last weekend, and I went undefeated on the weekend. 4-0 in my local weekly, 3-0 on the webcam weekly, and then 2-0 drop on the cockatrice weekly, which I haven't gotten to play in a couple weeks, so it was good to get back to it and see that I still have the edge.
Nice.
Very nice.
Yeah, and for myself, just I played in the Misty Mountain Games tournament a couple weeks ago, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. And a lot of house stuff. I've been trying to get the garden ready before mid-May, before we got a plant. We actually spot like a crap ton of dirt a day or two ago, and so I'm not looking forward to hauling that out there. But it'll be okay. But yeah, before we get too far into it, I figured I talked to you guys about it before we started recording. I thought that this was kind of this makes sense to do it, but calling out upcoming tournaments, if there's a local scene, if there's stuff on the Canadian Highlander Discord, which I'll let Impulse talk about. But I just wanted to give a quick shout out to two local tournaments that are happening near Ryan and I, at least here in Iowa. On May 24th, so a little less than 3 weeks, you've got the Des Moines Mayhem 1K, which is in the Mayhem Comics and Games in Des Moines. And then the day after that, on the May 25th, you've got the Twin Cities Brew Crew putting on is this their second or third tournament? I think it's their second one, right?
Yeah, this is their second Canlander tournament.
Yeah. But you've got those happening back to back. And both are 100% proxy friendly. So that'll be exciting. It's just kind of a lot more pressure is being put on the format, and it's a great thing for innovation, seeing a widespread metagame happen.
Oh,
but yeah. Oh, go ahead, Ryan.
Oh, I'm excited for both of them. It'll be a little bit of a quick turnaround going to Des Moines and then up to the Twin Cities, but I'm excited to play some Canlander.
I'm not going to be able to do that. That's too much driving for me. I've got that's 2 hours down to Des Moines. That's 3.5 up to Minneapolis. I'm like, I can't do that.
I guess I'm just a degen.
I think you're just more spry than I am.
In my young age.
In your young age, you're a couple years senior to me, but you got more energy than I do. Yeah, Impulse. We were talking about Discord events earlier, and what's coming up?
Yeah, well, we have a selection that's been growing and growing. So if you can make weekly events, we've got webcam events on Saturdays, cockatrice events on Sundays, in the mornings for PST, 10 a.m. As well as I think at least my webcam ones are monthly. I think the cockatrice ones might be every other month. But we also have asyncs if you can't show up at a specific time to play, which is you just sign up, you play your matches over the course of a few weeks. They're all completely free to play, completely proxy friendly. So just show up and bring a deck.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, I've played in a handful of them. Always fun. People are always super nice, super helpful. I know I'm actually in the May async right now, and I'm off to a terrible start. But you know what? it can only go up from here. At least that's what I'd like to tell myself. But yeah,
Yeah.
other than that,
And those are a
I think
great
you
chance to get your pet deck on the winner's archive for everybody to see. So some glory out there.
oh yeah, always important. And speaking of glory, the Misty Mountain Games tournament in Madison, Wisconsin happened. Oh gosh, was that 2 weeks ago now? Yeah, 2 weeks ago.
Mm-hmm.
And somebody let me make top 8. So that was a good time. Pricing was top heavy. It was top 2 each get a dual land. I think it was a Bayou and a Taiga. So if you didn't make top 2, you didn't get nothing. But it was still a great time, and I got to what's it called? I got my consolation prizes were like some extra cards, and I bought a board game or two. But
Nice. What'd you bring?
I bought Jeskai Control. Just kind of didn't know what people were playing up there, aside from green black mid range. But I was like, Jeskai traditionally does pretty well into creature strategies, so I was like, this seems like a good choice. And if I remember off the top of my head, I played against Mardu mid range or aggro in round 1. I got that. Round 2, I was playing against Esper Blink, and I got that. And then round 3, I played against Naya. I want to say Naya Monsters or Naya Aggro, but I got that in 2.
Nice.
So that was the most exciting match. That was the most exciting match of the day, personally, just because it was really tight play, and my opponent was really good, and I had to get lucky off some top decks on that one. And then I ID'd rounds 4 and 5, and then I subsequently lost in top 8. But that's just how it goes.
Yeah. What'd you play in top 8 that you lost to?
I played against Lance Combo, which seems like every time I play in a tournament, I die against Lance, and Jeskai just doesn't really have a way of dealing with Lance.
What does lands combo mean? Is this like dark depths or like strip block or all of it?
All of it. It was an Abzan Lands. And I say this I'm not trying to be disrespectful. An Abzan Lands pile. In the first game, I got it with just a Johnny Beats and pressure. My opponent didn't draw that well. And then game 2, they had a Bright Glass Gearhulk into Zurin Orb with the Crucible of Worlds, and they had Fast Bond. They got off the Bright Glass, so it was like, I'm not going to win through Infinite Life or whatever. And I know the combo's more than that. But and then game 3, I was a single mountain away from killing them with a Chain Lightning. But they had the strip lock. And it was rough, but it was a good game still. And yeah, just in general, everybody there were great people to play with and talk to and just hang out with. I think the only thing that I would change is I'm not 5.5 hours, or no, 4.5 hours, no, 3.5. I can't get my time right. 3.5 hours away.
Well, congrats on the finish. That's very solid placing.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah, big
Ryan. Yeah, thank you, Ryan. I think I'll let you take the lead on this, because now we get to talk about Impulse. Because Impulse isn't just here because we like talking to him. He's here because we're going to be discussing picking a deck for a tournament. Because, I mean, I don't know about you guys, but I think Impulse has done pretty well, and well enough with a handful of decks to have at least have a decent opinion on it.
Yeah, Impulse is how would you put it? He's a well-known member of the community, who's known for tuning decks and metagaming them to what he expects to face. So he's a great person to get some insight on this topic with. So, Impulse, we're going to talk about how you pick a deck.
For sure. You guys are making me blush, so Will we get into the questions?
Hey, it's all true.
And I'm sorry, but we still gotta tell you, you're not gonna be paid for this still.
We pay in compliments.
I'll take it.
You're gonna get paid in exposure.
So, picking a deck. So, some of the topics we kind of want to go over for a deck. One of the important things is, how do we win? Like, what's the point of the deck? And
Yeah, for sure. So I guess I'm gonna be talking about this mostly um from my own perspective, which I guess I'll get into in just a second. But there's if we're talking like other formats or in this format, there's a lot of different ways to approach tournaments.
Mhm.
You can take like a methodical approach where you want to just play a deck that's very consistent and try to let your own skill get there. That usually works really well for smaller tournaments. For bigger tournaments, you often want to try to spike them a little bit more. So that can be through a deck that's a little bit more high rolly. This is a really important term. I'm not sure where it's from, but it's definitely stuck in my head that it's better to be lucky than good. And better than both of those is to be lucky and good. So it's like this idea that like even if you're really, really good, you can still lose to luck. And so there's lists that play into that luck, and there's lists that try to play against that luck. And I personally prefer the former. Like I like my decks to be very consistent, because it allows me to learn more and gain more experience. Because I can figure out my mistakes. If I'm playing something like Flash Hulk, maybe that isn't the perfect example, but we'll just use Flash Hulk as a litmus for stereotypical combo.
Okay.
If I'm playing a combo deck, sometimes it can be hard to know like where I made a mistake. It's like, oh, I didn't play around the endurance. And it's like, well, should I have been? And then it's harder to analyze that mistake. Whereas with the decks that are in my wheelhouse, it's pretty easy to tell like where things went wrong. Like I should have forced that Oko on turn 3. It entirely took over the game. And you can kind of backtrack from your mistakes, and it makes it quicker to learn and gain more experience.
For sure. And if you tend to stick with a deck longer, you have like plenty of time to learn what those mistakes are and how to correct them, how to fix them. So that makes total sense. And does the number of rounds in a tournament affect your decision, or is it more based on just what you expect to see, or kind of how do you go into choosing that?
There's like a lot of different factors. You have to like take into account like what you expect the field to be. Which is probably the biggest thing that we're going to get into in the later questions is like, if you understand the field, that's like the first step. And then if you understand how to react appropriately to that field and bring a deck that has good matchups across that field, then that gives you like the best chance of winning the tournament. Along with that consistency thing I was saying as well, that's not even within just like the deck itself, but that can also be within the matchup spread of the deck. So a deck like Storm, you could bring that, which it's really favored into other stuff, but then has a really hard matchup into stuff like DNT. So it's like you could play to bring that and just dodge the DNT matchup, and that's entirely reasonable. Something like Jeskai has a much more consistent matchup spread that's in like the 40 to 60% range. Like you won't be any more favored or unfavored than like 10%. So Jeskai is like a really consistent choice in that regard, because no matter who you're paired into, you know that you have like a good chance, or at least a real chance of taking the match.
Yeah. And I know you play more than just Canadian Highlander. How does Canadian Highlander like picking a deck in that differ from other formats that you play, from like Standard, Pioneer, etc.? Is it basically the same process, or are there things that are kind of more unique to this format?
Um, when I play, I do play other formats a bit, but when I play other formats, I play them casually. Well, in a competitive sense, I'm going to a competitive tournament, but it's not like I have a deck that I necessarily main. I kind of just play whatever looks fun and then hope I do well. Um,
Okay. Yeah. I mean, one of
I don't. I sorry.
oh,
Yeah, I don't think there's a lot to transfer from other formats to this one. I think
okay.
the biggest thing is that in other formats, lines can be very predetermined of like if you're playing an Ocelot Pride deck versus a Bowmasters deck, like
Mhm.
you have to figure out like I'm gonna play Ocelot Pride, they're gonna Bowmasters it. So then like what's the line beyond that? And like how do you like sneak your Ocelot Pride in or get value from it in other ways? Like find out like thought seize them, see if they have the Bowmasters or just not play around the Bowmasters, whatever it may be. So there's like this consistent line that appears in matchups, and there's a lot of them. In Canlander, that just doesn't exist as much. When you play a one drop, it's like they might have a Bowmasters or a Ren and Six, but they could just as easily be looking at Flame Slash Solitude.
Yeah.
So Canlander's a lot more about like fundamentals and magic fundamentals and understanding like the way that decks work rather than the way that two specific cards interact.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Like in 60 card formats, I mean, you have four of or up to four of a certain card in a smaller deck, so you're going to see the same cards a lot more often.
Yeah.
And Canlander has a lot more variance in it. So sometimes the games go the same, especially if you're like a combo deck that's built to do the same thing over and over. But like with aggro decks, mid-range decks, you try to have consistency, but I mean, you'll have a bunch of different one drops, a bunch of different two drops, and the games will differ depending which ones you draw. So that all tracks and makes sense.
Yeah, and like at least for me, kind of like when I think about this stuff, like how do we win? I also am kind of just like, okay, so I'm just going to use the Misty Mountain Games one as an example. I saw the meta game, and I was like, okay, people are playing a lot of black green. People are playing a lot of um just graveyard combo decks, and I was like, well, what does that entail? Because I was like, well, people are playing a lot of graveyard decks anyways there. People are probably packing a lot of graveyard hate. And I'm like, and I usually play either like Jeskai or Lotus Breach. I'm like, okay, well, Lotus Breach is probably a really terrible choice then, because people are going to be packing that graveyard hate.
Yeah.
And a lot. And the other thing is just like, it's not like other formats where, like other 60 card formats where, you play game one and you got sideboarding between games one and two. You're just kind of going, okay, I lost and I have to accept that. And now you're like, now I need to recognize that my opponent has a lot of interaction for me. Um, like I, it's like a big reason why, at least in my Lotus Breach lists, I'm like, I am jamming City of Solitude, I am jamming Abeyance, I'm jamming stuff that takes care of activated abilities because it's really difficult to beat like a Nile Spellbomb if it's on board and just your opponent's just sitting there waiting to pop it.
Mm.
Or even like with Jeskai as an example, it's like I traditionally I move towards Jeskai because it's like, okay, well, what does Jeskai have? Jeskai has on stack interaction, so 99% of the time I can deal with it. Whatever comes my way. And if I don't, well, then I've got some silver bullets that can be found semi easily, except for like Dress Down and Ghost Vacuum.
Mm-hmm.
But like, Spellseeker finds Wrath of the Skies. Spellseeker finds most counter spells or draw spells or removal spells.
Yeah.
Mystical Tutor gets Terminus, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, you have some consistency in that, and being able to find a terminus in the matchups where you need it, like having those silver bullets, like you say. Like in Canlander, you don't have a sideboard, so you kind of have to choose what decks you're going to pre-sideboard for. Because you mentioned
Mhm.
like Ghost Vacuum. I mean, there's a lot of matchups where that is just a blank piece of cardboard. But
Mhm.
that's, I assume, one of the weaknesses of Jeskai, where you don't have a lot of cards that interact with recursive threats, and you need to be able to stop that recursion. And
Um,
or what's
mhm.
the thought process behind that card?
I mean,
Jeskai, for what it's worth, Jeskai has a lot of exile removal and then also counter magic. So
yeah.
it's not too hard to deal with graveyard cards, like in air quotes, so stuff like Uro and stuff like that.
Mhm.
You can counter it, you can swords it. It's but you don't have interaction for a player's graveyard. So like once a card is in your graveyard, it's probably safe from Jeskai. There aren't like a whole lot of good options. There's like Lion Slash, and then I'm currently running Ghost Vacuum, but it
Mhm.
does dry out.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of just like Impulse was discussing like how do we win. I was kind of thinking about like the how do we win, but then it's at least for me, I was also thinking about like how do we lose? Like I'm trying to think here. Um like a deck like some of the decks I don't really like playing are the hard graveyard decks. Like I'm gonna say Lotus Bridge again because I think that with the printing of the glyphs from Modern Horizons 3, like Barrowglyph, everybody's packing. Like everybody's making sure that they are able to deal with that either with exile removal or some way to deal with the graveyard. So it's just an O1 or really small. And, it's just like you don't really get the option of having an answer for it in the sideboard. And maybe I'm thinking about it wrong. Maybe I'm not going about it the correct way, but those are at least the processes and the things I think about when I'm deciding a deck. Like, am I just gonna get am I just gonna get stomped by really common answers that people are playing, or like what do I think people are gonna already be playing because of the metagame?
Yep.
That kind of stuff.
No, that makes sense. I mean, one of the things that I think about is you have to have answers for certain decks sitting like pre-boarded, so that might be bad against other decks. So you can either choose to dedicate some slots against like graveyard hate, artifact removal, things of that nature that might not come up every game, or you can kind of just choose to either lose to those or hope they don't draw it or have some other plan.
Mhm.
Like you
Yeah.
can't tech your deck out against everything. You kind of have to pick and choose the battles that you're going to fight. And you might have a plan against some of the other ones, but without a sideboard, there's a lot less control against some of the more strange choices or uh,
Mhm.
plans that aren't just creatures attacking and blocking.
Yeah.
That's kind of
Mhm.
a big note for the power of blue in this format in terms of consistency. Um, because first off, blue gives you like a small number of cantrips. You get like Ponder, Preordain, Brainstorm, Serum, and then after that, it like really dries up. A lot of them only look at one card. But anyway, that gives you like this level of consistency that other decks don't, where you're able to constantly find the things you need. And on top of that, counterspells are pretty universally applicable in that it doesn't matter if it's a Minskin Boo or an Oath of Druids or a Gifts Ungiven or a Time Vault. It's like the counterspell will still counter that card. Whereas another card like Lightning Bolt, like that only deals with one of those cards I listed. So there's like a lot of power in the blue interaction as well when it comes to consistency.
Mhm. Yeah. And I mean, I think that plays pretty well. Is like kind of the next question we got for you. Which is, oh gosh, let me get it pulled up. Which is, how does picking a deck for a Canadian Highlander tournament differ from that of, like 75 card? What lessons do we need to, like what kinds of lessons can we port over? Because I mean, we're talking about how even like if you're playing against like, I'm trying to think of a deck that like if your deck has a really bad game 1% win percentage against whatever, but then you can sideboard, like that doesn't really port over. And so these are just things you have to consider. But what are your thoughts on that?
I think the biggest thing that doesn't port over is the sideboard thing, like you were mentioning, because in 60 card there's like a couple of different ideas where it's like if I have a bad matchup against this deck, I can sideboard for it,
Mm-hmm.
and just include a heavy sideboard plan. For, let's say we're playing Boros Energy into Amulet Titan. And we're not gonna get into the specifics of the matchup, but let's just say that Boros Energy has a bad matchup into Titan. The like only way you can really beat Titan in the main deck, and like once again, this isn't factually true. This is just a hypothetical. Let's say it's Blood Moon. So then it's like you got 2 copies of Blood Moon, and that's your only way to beat Titan. So you're going to include a heavy sideboard for Titan. You'll include Alpine Moons, you'll include Damping Spears, stuff like that. So then when you run into Titan, you can beat it. And on the other side of that, it's like maybe you don't want to play 7 sideboard slots that basically just work for Titan. And so then you free up your sideboard a little bit. But if you run into Titan, you're kind of screwed. So that type of dynamic doesn't really exist in Highlander in the same way because there isn't a sideboard. But we can take the lesson and apply it to our main board and go, okay, sometimes it's easy to just say if I run into Reanimator, I'm gonna have a hard time.
Okay. And has that happened before where you choose, like, a metagame well, you know that you're not going to have to face, or you're likely not to face a certain strategy, so you kind of cut down on your interaction for that strategy?
Yeah, a good example of that is actually a Time Vault. I recently cut Bend, and while I'm probably that was like 6 months ago, I guess. And while I'm probably gonna add it back in, I just wasn't seeing any Time Vault players. And it's an incredibly key piece in the matchup for Jeskai into Time Vault. The Jeskai Time Vault matchup is like about even if Jeskai has Bend and Dress Down and March. And if you don't have those cards, you're incredibly unfavored against Time Vault because they just dodge all your removal.
Oh gosh. Yeah,
I'm sure you've experienced that, Cole.
oh my god, I play against a local here in Iowa. He plays Time Ball. It's like it's been his main deck for like maybe a year now, and it's just like I'm on Wrath, I'm on Bend. I cut Bend for like I think I cut Bend for 3 days. Um and I was just jamming webcam games against him because, prior to tournaments, I always want to play against him because he knows Time Vault, and I want to get practice against some of the decks that I consider to be the best in the format and or the most popular in the format.
Yeah.
And I just remember no Bend. I was just like, this is miserable. This sucks. I was like, I'm slotting this shit back in. I'm like, Ryan, I'm sorry, but this is other Ryan. I'm like, this is going back in the deck, and it's not because of you, but yeah, it's because of you. But yeah, it's just like and it's just kind of like that for a lot of matchups, I feel like. And that's, again, I'm not meaning to make Jeskai sound like the best tournament deck, but I think that for me at least, I value that consistency and not just getting blown out by any one deck when I go into a tournament, because I think that when you decide what deck you want to play, that the getting blown out thing is much more of a possibility without the sideboard.
Yeah.
A lot of like a majority, not all, but something like 60-70% of the players that are more consistent in the format that are tournament grinders, they typically end up on either control or combo. Because these are the decks running the blue cantrips. They're the decks that have a consistent game plan. They're the decks that usually have a fairly fat matchup spread. Blue has a much flatter matchup spread than combo does, but it's not like combo has game into everything. You can time vault everybody.
Yeah.
And so more experienced players tend to gravitate towards those archetypes. which isn't anything against aggro or to say it's bad. It's just less
Yeah,
consistent.
and I think, and I mean, like our Ryan Rubber Duck Sauce has had a lot of really good success with Naya.
Mm-hmm.
And I know you've mainly switched over to Nadu at this point, but I mean, I think that the reason why certain aggro decks do so well, and I'm gonna just mention Death and Taxes because I kind of think about the vintage metagame. It's like you've got like Luris Paradoxal Outcome, you've got Shops, and I'm not gonna act like I know any other deck in the format because I don't.
Well,
Um,
the best aggro deck in the format is
yeah,
Mono White Initiative because it has
yeah,
mana acceleration and some of those hate pieces where
mhm,
it can. It's a creature based deck that has some game against combo. If you're able to get out an Archon of Emeria against Paradoxical Outcome or any sort of storm, whatnot, that card's just a brick wall that they have to deal with. Or
yeah, exactly.
I don't know if
shops.
they run Thalia, but they definitely ran Mr. Arms when I last played Vintage as well, or Anointed Peacekeeper.
Yeah, and I think that Clarion Conqueror is mainly a sideboard card at this point, which is the new card from Dragons of Tarkir. For anybody that doesn't know, I feel like most people know at this point. But yeah, kind of making parallels to vintage D&T to Canlander D&T. You see a lot of the D&T decks they're splashing red now, mainly because of Blood Moon, I think, and like Pyroglyph and Eomir. I don't know the rest of the card's name, but it's the one where it enters and domes your opponent equals the number of humans that you have or whatever. Um, like the reason why D&T does so well is because it's a really disruptive aggro deck, and it's a I think it does the consistent disruption plan pretty well. And people don't play it for some reason, but like, maybe I don't know, maybe it's just people are lizard braining over combo or
It just lost. It lost a lot of value. With one of the recent printings, I forgot what it was.
Bowmasters.
I'm not
I wrote it
sure.
down right though. Um yeah, just kind of things I was thinking about, but I mean, I guess
I mean, we were
The
still.
circle way back. Yeah, I was talking about cutting Bend from Jeskai and being willing
yeah.
to sacrifice that matchup. Um, and it worked for me. I didn't face Time Vault for a bit. Like the only Time Vault pilot was Rigorn for quite a while.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, you consistently show up to these tournaments, you know what you're going to have to face, and like people will show up with decks you don't expect, but like you kind of pick and choose your battles on what you think is going to give you the best chance overall of what you're going to face. But I think we can probably go on to the next question of
Yeah, I think so.
before you pick a deck, what are some things to keep in mind that are important, essential to picking the right deck? Like, how much research do you do on a certain deck? Do you just kind of go with the stock list at first, or do you try to make it more your personal version of the deck? How do you kind of approach picking a deck if for whatever reason you're not playing a deck that you've played hundreds of times already?
It's hard to know because, like, part of my tournament prep is that I play the deck hundreds of times, or I don't always have time for hundreds, but that's a bit of an exaggeration, but at least dozens. If I'm planning to play the deck in anything serious.
Okay.
Um,
Maybe
I
we can.
also I play decks that have different game plans, but they're all within the same wheelhouse of including Ponder. Um, that's the type of magic I like. So that's the type of deck I like. There's a lot of I play Reanimator, Oath. I'm known as the like Jeskai guy, but I've played all the blue combinations, I think.
Hmm.
Okay.
Uh,
And like
it-
you said, that's mostly a consistency thing. You value the consistency of it, or what's your reasoning on that?
yeah, for sure. Well, I enjoy playing blue, and I think that's one of the biggest things that you can do for a tournament is you want to play a deck that you enjoy. Um, it's not fun to sit there and play a deck that you don't enjoy just because you think it's the best choice for a tournament. Even if you make it, you won't have fun, and more likely than not, you'll end up getting fatigued faster or getting tilted easier.
Oh my god,
Um,
yes.
so it's like definitely start with the thing that you like, whatever that thing is, and build your way off of it.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. Just kind of to interject, I remember I played in a quarterly in Ankeny a long time ago, and I was like, you know what? Everybody's hyping up Jeskai Green, and I'm gonna play Jeskai Green today. Um, Jeskai Green has a pretty abysmal combo matchup from what I remember. Um,
Oh yeah,
from like
awful.
I played out of my like 5 rounds that day, I played against like 4 combo decks.
Ooh.
Um, yeah, I just remember I tilted off the face of the earth because I was like, one, I'm like trying to play for like ranking, and then I'm like, okay, well, everybody's already drawn into top eight. So what is the point of me playing anyway? So I just scooped it up and I left, and I feel really bad because Cody, a local here, he was like, Cole, I made top eight, hug me, and I was like, Cody, I need to not be near anybody right now. just like, I was like, nothing against you. I just need to like give myself space and like, because I just wasn't having a good time that day. It's like, I was like kind of forcing myself to play the deck, and it just led to me getting more tilted. And like, I mean, I think Ryan's probably seen me get tilted at least once or twice. And like, I'm just kind of like, okay, I'm done here. Like, I just need to like back off for a little bit. Like, that's why, I think that impulse you saw a little bit of, I was like trying out Grixis, and I was like, okay, I'm done with this. I've consistently been getting smashed by Rakdos for like 5 sets in a row. I don't think this is a very good deck now.
Mhm.
No, for sure. And that kind of plays into like the biggest part of tournament prep, which is that you got to take care of yourself, homie.
Yeah.
Like, even before the webcam weeklies, or often before I solo queue in competitive games, I would go do a little run. Like, even if it's just, down the driveway and back to the mailbox and back, it's like get your heart going, make sure you're hydrated, eat some food. Like you want to be in the right headspace to play.
Hmm. Yeah. Like, I mean, I know that this week in the Misty Mountain Games tournament, I got to the place, and we had 15 minutes before the tournament started, and I was like, it's time. I'm very tired. I had my coffee this morning, but I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna get a Snickers. It is 10:45 in the morning, but I know that a Snickers is just a really dense food, and I will feel okay for a couple of rounds. And it worked. I mean, and even just like, I mean, if you guys have played against me, I try to joke around when I'm playing, even if I'm playing seriously. It's just like it lightens the mood. It makes it so that like, I feel like if you don't tunnel vision as much. Um, but
That's a huge, huge thing for competitive Magic too. Like if you're going to like any MXP, SCG Con, any like big event where you're at a convention center, like you gotta take care of yourself. Well, then I went to round one for Two-Headed Giant sealed. We played into a pair of friends, and they were on like 2 hours of sleep. They were completely hungover. They were starving. They were like both dehydrated, and they told us all that. They were lovely. It was fun to play against. But they were like forgetting to play their lands. They were like just pointing removal at like random common 2 drops when we had like 5 mana mythics in play. Um, and it's just like they weren't present. They weren't there. And if you aren't taking care of yourself, that's way too easy to happen.
no, and like the person I can think of that kind of embodies this the most is we were talking about him earlier, Travis. Um, for people that don't know, Travis is like I mean, Ryan, you can kind of talk to this also. I kind of think of as like the local Iowa boogeyman. Like, um, I he's won God knows how many of the win a duel tournaments in the area
Yeah.
between Des Moines and Cedar Rapids. I think it's like at least 6 or 7.
Yeah,
Um,
I was thinking probably about 6 of them, but even the ones that he doesn't win, he like very rarely misses top 8. He's kind of one of the Iowa end bosses, is how I describe him.
yeah, no, exactly. And I remember for the one Misty Mountain Games tournament I went to last year around this time, I was like, that is a 3.5 hour drive for me. I am not driving up that. I'm not waking up that early, so I crashed at Travis's place. Um, I walk in. It's Friday night. I got done playing FNM because I was like, I'm gonna get some last minute games in. I walk in. Travis is just like watching Twitch, and it's like 8:30. He goes, "Oh, cool, you here? I'm going to bed." I was like, "It's 8:30." He's like, "Yeah, I'm going to bed." I was like, "Okay." And I learned that he doesn't play Magic. I think the night prior to any tournament, he doesn't stay up late. He goes right to bed at like 8:30 or 9 to get a full night's rest. Um, so he can wake up early, and he makes fan fucking tastic tostadas. Just heads up. If you ever get to like ride somewhere with Travis, he makes great tostadas. Um, but yeah, we're kind of just talking about mental health, and that's kind of I feel like everybody mentions that on any tournament prep podcast or competitive podcast ever, but it's really true.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I'm gonna say some of the corniest stuff here, but we're talking about winning tourneys, and winning a tourney isn't always getting first in the tourney. Sometimes you can win a tourney by showing up, playing the deck you enjoy, and having fun with friends. That sounds corny as hell, but it's the
The
truth.
real
No, that
the real prize are the friends we made along the way.
Well, when you just look at a tournament, I mean, if 36 people show up, one person walks away with first place. There's a lot more people who don't get first place, and everybody's there trying, so like not everybody can walk away a winner. So like, yeah, that's a good headspace to be in, that you
Mhm.
try to do well, do your prep work, feel like you're prepared for a tournament, and put yourself in a good space to do well, but you can't expect to win every tournament. That's just not
Mhm.
possible.
Yeah, I was gonna say I feel like we're kind of just like going into the next question, like because we were talking.
Oh yes.
Oh,
We're just like going along, but kind of just like make sure that we're all on the same page and really kind of make sure that people understand the question. Like, you know, we're the next question is before you pick a deck, what are the things you keep in mind that are important, essential to picking the right deck? And are there any times you can think of where this has paid off in dividends for you? Um, so Impulse, I'll hand it over to you. You get to talk
Yeah,
more.
for sure. Bring the deck you have fun with. I can't count the amount of tournaments that I have gone to for Canadian Highlander where the best option for me to bring would have been a deck like Flash Hulk or Lotus Breach. But those just aren't really like my style of deck to play in a tournament. And so it's like I could play them, I could probably win with them, but it's like I want to have fun, and it's not like my brand. I want to Jeskai people or Oath people or Escape Shift
Mhm.
people. I don't want to flash people,
Yeah,
in game, of course.
I was just gonna let that one go. Um, yeah, I mean, like, I agree with you on that, and I mean, kind of, I guess at least what I'm gonna ask you next is, you can play the deck you want, but is I mean, there's got to be more of a reason why you would play Jeskai, right? Like, do you think it's got a better, like you were talking, has a pretty good spread into most matchups? Do you think that when you look at a metagame or an expected field, do you ever think maybe I shouldn't play Jeskai, or maybe I should play some variation of Jeskai? Like this past year end for the Canadian Highlander Discord, just kind of context. Whenever if you do well enough in the in the weekly tournaments or the asyncs, you get invited to a year end tournament, and Impulse won how many of them?
Well, I won 3 out of the 4 I attended. and the other one I just had to drop for time, but I was in top 4.
Yeah, and you played Esper Red for that, so I mean, kind of Jeskai, but like, I mean, what were the kind of what kinds of considerations do you make when you think about that stuff?
Yeah, for sure. So, I mean, the secret, and this isn't actually, I don't think something that I've told a lot of people before, but I didn't choose like Jeskai for like any real reason. I just kind of chose it on a whim. Um, I had like just joined the format. I won something like 15 weeklies in a row on 15 different decks. It was kind of crazy run. And then I was like, okay, there's a year end coming up. Like, I want to settle down and start to get my grind on. So I was really looking at bug and then like other combinations, and I just settled on Jeskai. I liked having access to the white and red removal. And there were some cool cards at that time that I was interested in playing. I don't remember. It's been quite a while since I played that version. Um, but yeah, I play a lot of different things besides Jeskai. Um, and for the year end, I wanted to bring a blue deck. I felt like blue was the best option, and I expected the meta to be full of blue in combo with like not much aggro. So I decided I can take my Jeskai list. I'll drop the red because I don't need the red removal, but I want to keep the best red threats like Fourth and Flage, so I'll keep those in. And then I'll just add black for the anti-combo, anti-blue cards. Like Opposition Agent, Bowmasters, the hand attack. And so that's how I settled on that version. So once again, that's identifying the field, adapting to the field, and then creating a list for that.
Okay. No, I think that's a pretty good answer personally. I mean, you kind of went over, I think, some of the most important things when you're deciding a deck, like knowing what you're going to play against. Maybe you're realizing that your deck might have shortcomings and kind of just adjusting. And I think that those are the most important questions that anybody needs to ask themselves before they go into a tournament. Uh, like, is your deck going to hold up to some random Time Vault or Jeskai player, or are you going to be able to play against whatever people are bringing to the meta? And yeah, I think just being able to recognize that is a really, really important skill to have for this format.
How about you? How do you guys answer that question?
Ryan, I'm talking a lot. I'll let you go.
Yeah, one of the things that, especially in a tournament that I don't really know what I'm going to face, more of a open tournament, I tend to like to have a strong plan that my opponent has to have an answer to, because I don't really trust myself to be able to pick what the right thing to answer is, what matters against an unknown deck list. So if I'm asking the questions and they're dirtling around, I can just focus on my game plan, executing it as well as I can, and just adapting as things go. But at least I have a plan to start off with to be able to adapt. So in Canadian Highlander here, like, I've had a lot of success with Naya aggro decks, that sort of thing. Recently, Nadu.
Like monsters or like lower to the ground stuff?
For Naya,
For Naya?
yeah, it was kind of a soul mana stompy deck. So it went up to 4 drops. There were some versions of the deck that went as high as Glorybringer, but I really focused on like 1 drops and 3 drops. Try and get something out turn 1 or turn 2 that can just snowball a game. Whether that's getting out like Mox Pearl into Ancient Tomb and trying to land a turn 1 Thalia or Archon, or just playing like Ragavan and a couple removal spells to snowball with that. Just be able to get out on the field as quickly as possible and kind of adapt from there or make my opponents adapt to my plan. And that's kind of where I like to go.
Yeah, I mean, for myself at least, we kind of talked about it. I like being consistent. I like not just auto losing. And I think that when I think about that, I kind of just go, okay, well, what deck won't just auto lose into this metagame, and maybe it's got to be like Lotus Breach, or maybe it'll be, Jeskai. And generally it's going to be Jeskai just because Jeskai is much more like blanket spread. But also, when I think about a metagame, I just kind of, or at least before I choose any deck for a tournament, I mean, Ryan can attest to this. I dig deep into what their metagame is. I try to find out what people are playing.
Yeah.
Because like for the first Misty Mountain Games tournament, I was so flustered because I was like, they have nothing for where they post any lists. Like, there's no Discord. I mean, there was a Discord for the store, but it didn't post any. There were no talking about lists. Nobody ever talked about what did well in their locals on the main Canlander Discord. There's no Moxfield profile for it. I think I found one. I think I ended up looking for the people posting the event. I was like, I'm going to look for messages from them. And there was like 2 messages about death and taxes. I was like, okay, so this is obviously going to be a crapshoot. And if it's an unknown metagame, I'm just like, I'm going to play Jeskai. I have the most experience with it. Blanket spread pretty good matchups. But yeah, and also just, I think that I don't really care for high rolling, like, I mean, I say that and I say I also play Lotus Breach, but like, I think that high rolling is fine, but it's not a guaranteed thing. And that risk of not just like, not having the guaranteed game plan or not being able to do it every time isn't something that sits well with me. So I'd rather just do something that's like a little bit slower, but a lot more consistent.
And that's fair.
Oh. Yeah. Oh, yeah, I'm trying to think here. I think that was a pretty good discussion, though. I think I think that we've got one last question. I don't know if there's anything else either of you want to add to that one about picking what you do before you pick a deck.
No, I think I'm good to move on.
Yeah, I am as well.
Okay, Ryan, I'll let you do the last question. I'm doing a ton of talking here, otherwise I was going to hand it over to you.
You're doing a great job at it. So, guess the next question is it okay to bring a deck you don't believe is the correct choice, but if the pilot has a lot of experience on it, like, when would this be correct or incorrect, and have you done this before?
Sorry, could you repeat?
Is it okay to bring a deck that you don't think is like the best choice for a tournament, but you have a lot of experience on it?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that plays into the last question.
Mm-hmm.
Where it's like I will bring Jeskai more often than not, even if it's not the correct choice.
Okay.
I think that's okay. Bring the deck that you have fun with, but also bring a deck that has a shot. You can like have fun, but winning is also having fun. I definitely enjoy winning. So
yeah, it is a pretty good feeling.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
what about you guys? Would you bring a deck that's not the correct choice, Cole?
I don't know. I feel like if I'm gonna decide on a deck, I think it's the correct choice. Like, I mean, that's a pretty bland answer, but if I don't think a deck's the correct choice, why am I playing it?
Sure, but I guess it's that it's the correct choice for you. Yeah. And not that it's like necessarily the most optimal choice. Is that what you're saying?
I mean, at least when I kind of thought about this question, it was like, like, is something like the experience thing, is the thing about being more experienced in the deck more important than it being like the best metagame choice? Like, I know that with a lot of times it's like you can play like Flash Lock will just destroy some meta games because nobody's ever prepared for it. But like, is it correct if you have no experience with the deck? And usually the answer is going to be no. If you don't know how to play the deck, don't play the deck. Go, gravitate towards what you know how to play.
I think given enough time, you should be able to get in games to be at least proficient with the deck before a tournament that is an important tournament that you hope to win. Spend a few weeks beforehand playing some casual games against different archetypes, different people, learn your deck, learn the ins and outs of it, how to play around certain stuff. Like, if you want to do well with the deck, like, practice with it and, like, become a good pilot of the deck.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there are Canlander one tricks who, like, play only one thing that do well with it, but, I mean, I think it's fun branching out, trying a bunch of different stuff. And if you don't find something that really clicks, you can always go back to your deck. But have fun, get outside your comfort zone, and like, even if you don't end up playing the deck, you know how it plays better, and like, you know how to beat it because you've been beaten while playing it, and hopefully it'll make your game against that deck better.
Oh my gosh, that just gave me flashbacks when I tried playing Esper Reanimator for like, I want to say like a month. And I gave up because I reanimated an Atraxa 3 times in one game and flipped 27 lands. It's like
How are you on that many land?
I don't know. This was like a year ago. I just remember that I was playing it on FNM and I was like, I'm gonna try and play this deck at a tournament, because I was like, guess Reanimator seems pretty good,
Yeah.
Because it just been, I think it was Crayon or somebody had done really well with Reanimator at an MXP event.
Bro, that happens like every time there's an MXP event.
Yeah, that's yeah. It made me realize maybe Crayon's just a really good Reanimator pilot, and maybe I just need to like, just like stay in my lane. But like, yeah, no, I just remember I was playing an FNM. I reanimated Atraxa 3 times in one game. My opponent went, "How many lands are you playing?" And I was like, "I'm only playing like 32. Like, I'm not playing that many lands in this deck, And I can't remember. I think it was like 29 and 30, but it was some absurd number. But yeah, that's and this was like after like I think I had played the deck online for like a week, and then I went to FNM, so it wasn't like it wasn't pre-shuffled or nothing. But yeah, no, like I can understand all that. I think that at least for me, like I'm very much more. I don't know. I think that at least for myself, I'm much more of a black and white like kind of person, seeing like is it the right choice or is it not the right choice? And like if it's not the best choice for the metagame, then why wouldn't you play that? And I can understand more about how like if you have more experience with the deck, then you should probably be playing that as your default. Unless it's like, I don't know, I'm trying to think of somebody we can pick on. Unless it's blood, don't play blood. But Zoe, I'm just kidding. You're great. I talk shit and I'll lose the blood. But yeah, just kind of my thoughts on that. I don't know. Is there anything else you want to say, Impulse? Because I think that was the last question we had. But like, I guess, what is there anything else that you've thought about that you want to discuss before we kind of go into closing statements and stuff like that, or like closing thoughts?
Oh, the one thing I have, this plays back into like the experience thing, but it's like this is a fundamentals based format, so experience matters more than anything else. No two Canlander games are going to be the same. Not that necessarily two modern games are ever the same, but Canlander games are going to be even farther different because.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know if you ever put a new card in your deck for testing and then you don't see it for 20 matches.
Yep.
Yep.
Oh yeah. Yep.
Metagame for a tournament and never draw any of the cards you added, yeah, for sure.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I put Pyroclasm in a deck where I was like, I'm gonna be playing install aggro decks. Didn't see it in like 5 rounds, and I think it was like I went 2-1. I went either 2-1 or 1-2 every time. So it's like, okay, well, like I'm just not supposed to draw this card then.
Yeah, and you like almost like gaslight yourself into like, did I actually add that? Like, isn't in the deck?
Oh my gosh. Yep. I don't know about you. You go ahead.
But yeah, expertise and gameplay knowledge and deck mastery matter a lot. And it's not like you need to play the exact same 100. But playing similar archetypes is a good way to start. And that's kind of why I relegate myself to playing typically reactive, typically reactive, typically blue based decks.
Mm-hmm.
Because, Oath and Jesse aren't exactly the same, but they do a lot of the same stuff. You're gonna kill their 3-drop, you're gonna play your 4-drop, or whatever it may be.
Yeah.
And that helps me a lot.
They mostly differ in how the game ends, but you still have a lot of reactive cards in both of them. And a lot of, like you said, card filtering.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like I don't know about you guys, but have you ever gone from playing a blue deck to not playing a blue deck? It's
all the time.
It's whack. Like, Impulse saw me playing this because I feel like most people see me and they go, "Oh, Cole's playing Jeskai or Lotus Breach or some other deck that's really good." I'm playing garbage 99% of the time. Like, I'm trying out Mardu right now because like this seems like a kind of an interesting idea. I don't know how I feel. It's weird. It feels like I have to like mulligan like I'm playing Storm because I don't see the most cards, and I have to like try and find a combination of cards that will win the game. But
for sure,
yeah.
Well, I mean, Impulse. What are some closing thoughts? I think we kind of just did that, but closing thoughts, Ryan. Closing thoughts. Kind of tie this whole conversation together.
I think a common thread was play something that you enjoy. This is, I mean, we play this for fun, have fun while doing it, but you can play the good cards and have fun.
Yeah.
That's pretty basic overview, but Impulse, something a little bit more structured than that, something with more insight.
Yeah, I'll just bring it back to like the steps where it's you need to figure out the metagame, like what's going on, what are people playing, what's happening. You need to figure out what deck you want to bring, and then you need to figure out how to adapt that deck for the metagame. And so those are like the 3 steps of like, okay, I know it's going to be blue and combo, so I want to bring hand attack, I want to bring counter spells. So then you put Esper Red together.
Go ahead.
The meta is going to have a lot. Yeah, the meta is going to have a lot of aggro. You make sure you sleeve your balance. Play any balance deck, like that sort of thing. Can't wait for balance to get pointed. Is this coming out after the pointings?
I don't know. I'm gonna be real with the Chief. This mainly depends on how much I gotta do with the garden.
Okay.
We can make it come out after.
Okay, that's fair. That's fair. I'm not gonna ask Impulse to, give us insider trading information because that is obviously how the stock markets move, is in accordance to Canadian Highlander staples. But
sell balance now. That's all. This is not this is not economic advice.
Sell balance, buy stock ups. But yeah, no, I don't think there's anything else I can say, because I think you guys did a pretty good job of summing it up. Just understand the metagame, figure out how you want to play, how do you want to win, are you gonna, and also just like make sure you enjoy yourself, because like as much as we want to be spiky, and as much we want to just like play the objectively best deck, sometimes the correct option is just play what you're familiar with.
Yeah.
Like, and what you're familiar with is usually gonna be what you enjoy.
You will practice more with the deck that you enjoy.
Unless it's 4-color blood. Um, I'm sorry.
Wow, the
I
double on Zoe, holy smokes.
That's okay. That's okay. I give Zoe shit all the time. She's used to it. Um,
Zoe reminds me of one of my friends in League who always says he wants to main a champion, but then we get in the game and he plays like anything but that champion.
oh my gosh. It's like, it's because I think Zoe's just coming to the realization that Kellen's not a good card. Um,
The
and
triple dagger.
I'm gonna stop there because what's gonna happen is I'm gonna play any pickup game against Zoe and just get fucking dumpstered for like 6 hours straight. I just already know that's exactly what's gonna happen. Uh, but yeah, no, I mean, closing thoughts. And I guess that this is one final question. I mean, Ryan, you can answer this also. Impulse, we kind of been talking a little bit. I talked to you about this podcast a little bit. Um, what are some things you'd like to see us talk about in the future? What do you think would be beneficial for people wanting to prepare for their first tournament? Maybe or prepare for a high stakes tournament even. Like what do you think would be important to talk about?
Yeah, so a couple things that I'd love to see. I'd love to see a really just basic like tournament magic 101 of a lot of the basic magic principles. Um like understanding who's the beat down. Talking about like understand or like reading what cards your opponent has in hand. I had a really funny. Well, actually, it was in the match against JR, or Jeremy. I believe I said it on stream because he had 3 cards in hand, and he was missing land drops, but he also hadn't removed my creature. And so I told Genghis, it was like, I bet that he has like some pieces of the Seeker combo in hand, like he's sitting on like an Eldritch Evolution and the Ephemerate that just don't do anything. Because if he had something, he would have played it. So those like magic fundamentals, reading your opponent's hand, who's the beat down, goals and matchups, protecting important key like hate pieces in matchups, all that stuff. That's one thing I'd love to see for an episode. Another thing I'd love to see for an episode is like reading a meta. We kind of talked about that as one of the steps, but I'd love to see an in-depth episode of like how do you guys figure out what a meta is and try to diagnose what people are going to bring. I had one more. Man, I don't remember it now. Hopefully it'll come to me. We can move on.
Yeah, that's okay. I mean, we've been talking about a lot of stuff. It's been a great conversation, but also like, yeah, I understand that.
There it is. The post tournament, like, well, coming back with the data from a tournament and adapting your deck to that. I think that's a huge thing of like understanding. Sometimes you lose to a card and it's just bad beats, and you got to understand that it's bad beats. Sometimes you lose to a card and you could have done something better. And so kind of diagnosing which things are blunders and which things are things that you couldn't have fixed, or which things like maybe you should have picked a different deck. But having that like post tournament analysis, I think that could be another episode.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Those are some sick ideas. And once again, I will remind you that you are not being paid. But if anybody wants to, that Impulse, where can they find you to tip you? Do you have a code? Do you have a I don't know, do you have a cash app? Do you have anywhere people can find you so they can talk to you? Maybe they can be like, hey, do you want like a coffee or whatever if you drink coffee? Where
For sure.
Do you want people to find you?
Well, I'm on the main Discord, and I do give out my PayPal handle. Especially I'm like the main TO for the asyncs. So if you want any Like if you want to be in a specific pod, I can place you against like all aggro or all soft opponents or like kind of whatever you want. And the fees for that kind of range based off of how in depth, like what your specifications are.
Okay.
But yeah, find me over on the main Discord. Come play Magic with me.
Awesome. Yeah, we'll definitely try that. And this is for everybody. Is there last minute call for any shameless plugs? It can be literally anything. It can be, people can. I can give people my PayPal handle or Impulse. You can throw yours out there. Ryan, you can. Uh, Ryan, I don't know what even your shameless plug would be. I'm gonna be honest with you.
I mean, kind of this show. If you enjoyed this, maybe tell a friend about it. Thanks for being here. And I mean, hopefully you guys enjoyed this conversation enough to check us out again.
Yeah, I mean, we've got Twitter, we've got Blue Sky, we've got a YouTube channel. You guys can follow any of those. You can like, you can subscribe, you can comment. It always helps out the algorithm. You can usually find us you can find me on Discord, but or Twitter, but I'm always reposting this podcast stuff. And then Impulse, any last minute shameless plugs?
It's not really a bug because I'm not doing much with it, but I do have a YouTube channel and I'm working on a Jeskai series of Jeskai gameplay.
Okay.
All right. So if you're interested in reactive decks, I talk about it's just like I play a match against an opponent on a deck and talk through lines with a co-host.
Sounds awesome.
So that's the biggest one. The other shameless plug, which we've already gone over, is the asyncs. Join the Discord. Come play Magic.
Okay, awesome. Well, I think that's the end of our wonderful discussion. So thanks again, everybody, for listening. Just want to thank you again. It's episode 2, but we're getting some good feedback. We're hearing a lot of good stuff. So I got nothing else. Ryan, you want to say anything?
No, that covers it here. Thank you guys for your time.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for being on here, Impulse. We really appreciate it.
Of course.
Yep.
All right. And bye.
Bye.
Bye.